So maybe one of the bigger questions that is very popular is this going to kill React Native?
Kill.
Kill.
Hi, welcome to Devs on a Couch.
Today we're going to look at Flutter and React Native, talk about our experiences with them, and see which frameworks are going to be great to use in 2019. If you're new here, we are Crema. We help companies all over the country build, design, and develop products and the teams that build them.
What are we doing, CK?
We're going to talk about Flutter, and I guess the first thing we want to say, or kind of intro, is who made it, what is it, and why is it good?
Who made it? I know that one. Google made it.
Done.
So it's more than just a mobile framework like React Native. What differentiates it from React Native?
Well, I think right now it's mostly for mobile solutions, but Google is also trying to make it work on the desktop and the web.
Very cool. And our expertise with it so far, I know you guys have dug into this a little more than I have. But
yeah, not as much. I think we're all kind of newbies at it at the end of the day. So I've done some Udemy stuff, done the code labs, 2 or 3 of them, but yeah, we're still figuring out as we go, I think.
Yeah, same. I've done 2 or 3 like little minor apps. I did the token Taylor Swift app, of course, and yeah, Udemy course.
Cool. And your first impressions coming from React Native?
You or me?
You can go.
Yeah, I mean, so far it's been extremely stable. I think that's one of my favorite things about it.
I think we differ a little bit in the stability aspect of it, just because I come from purely web background and using React, and then getting into React Native was really nice just because I could utilize all the same things. But then Flutter is a lot more of a native experience, and so a lot of the environment stuff and having to dig into that native code has been a little bit more challenging for me, a little bit more spin up time. But
yeah, I think one of the biggest things that I noticed up front is just the sheer amount of widgets that are available.
Yes.
So in React Native, you pretty much have to roll your own everything, or go to a third party. So like your navigation, well, that's the big one.
that is
Navigation.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I mean, like there's a widget for just about everything in
And everything
Flutter.
is a widget, right?
And everything is a widget.
The philosophy, yeah. So in what we've played around with so far, we've noticed some like sharp differences between Flutter and React Native. We've also noticed that there are a lot of similarities where they're just calling something slightly different, like widgets instead of components and things like that. But then there are some things that are maybe taking on a different flavor entirely, like the block pattern. Do you guys want to talk about that a little bit?
I don't.
You don't. I've delved into it a little bit. It is really interesting. We've talked about it some. It reminds me a lot of Redux, just in that you're kind of reaching out with an action type thing and then reaching into some type of store where everything's kind of handled. The cool thing about the block pattern that I've noticed is it seems like to me, and I don't know how true or not true this is, but as I've used it, you do a lot more logic in there than like in your block than you would within like Redux.
Yeah.
I mean, I know
Like business logic component?
Yeah, so I mean, you've got your reducers and everything where you
I don't know. I forgot.
it's
what
like a widget. I don't know.
I think it stands for something like that.
Yeah, you do what it's called basically. But that was a really interesting thing to me, is everything happens in the block that's related to the block.
So if we were to rapid fire, like why would someone want to pick up Flutter and start messing with it? We've talked about the error handling, which is a huge deal.
Yeah, that's big.
You know, like stateful hot reloading and getting those errors in line at, like at the
Stateful hot
component level.
reload.
Yeah, I mean that's a whole thing.
I mean, just using Dart, again, I come from the web and JavaScript, so not a strongly typed language by any means. And so getting into that, there's a lot more just native error handling just because of the language you're using. But the thing that I'm almost most excited about is just the animations you get out of the box. So like when something's not valid, it gives this little tiny jiggle, which is so awesome. It's like haptic feedback for the eyes.
Yeah. Whoa. Maybe we could license that. Haptic feedback for the eyes. So
They should steal that.
now you mentioned Flare,
TM.
Yes.
which is a really cool thing that they're doing with SVG support. So you're able to take SVG animations and use them natively within the app, and then also extend that. You could even use that in other platforms. So if you create the animation, export that to web or
Yeah, so Flare are 2D animations. Basically, you can include it. It's a file in your app. You would use it like an image or anything else. but you can have these different states. And some of the examples we've seen are extremely cool. This one this week that I shared out was it a bear?
Yeah.
But a bear on a login form. And so as you're typing, you can send a message to that to play this animation to watch as the user is typing. And then if there's an error, it can be like, oh, So it's just really cool. And it all happens at, to what Andrew was saying, 60 frames per second. And so it's like extremely smooth and it's so cool.
Yeah. And then you've got the native navigation component. You're not using a third party for that. There's thinking about writing in cross-platform. Right now, it's on the mobile platforms. It's also quickly being ported toward desktop and maybe even web.
Yeah. That would be crazy. Cool. That would be crazy just if you could do everything in one code base. It would be one of the more powerful platforms out there.
Yeah.
And I know we were talking about this earlier, but that was one of the things that stood out with React Native, because the promise is with React Native that it's learn once and write everywhere, but it's just not the case. I mean, the difference between React Web and React Native are
ever widening.
Yeah, really. And honestly, like every time I have to upgrade a React Native project, I
That's true.
Oh, we didn't talk about upgrading. That's a huge deal,
That
right?
is big.
Yeah.
I mean, to upgrade from Flutter version to version is just
Flutter update.
Yeah.
And
it's done.
And so far, I mean, knock on wood.
Right.
We don't have any wood, but yeah. But yeah, so far it's just Flutter update and everything just continues to work. So yeah, it's the overall experience has been extremely nice so far. I really love it.
So maybe one of the bigger questions that is very popular is this going to kill React Native?
Kill.
Yeah. I'm kidding.
Literally kill React Native.
Is that a
I think
question?
I think it's fairly it's something that people are asking, but it's as a dev, I think we always look at that kind of question and say, well, no, you're not going to. One framework isn't going to necessarily kill another one.
Well,
it's what's the use case and what's the community adoption and support.
So think about when React and React Native came out, everybody was asking the same thing about Angular. Is this going to kill Angular? And I mean, there's something like 500,000 apps still on the App Store using Angular. So it's not going anywhere, and there's still going to be a need for it.
I mean,
people
PHP is still here. It's probably not going to kill React or React Native.
Though, it is gaining support rather quickly, which is nice to see. Yeah. And it's backed by Google with a serious commitment to this stuff. So it looks cool.
I mean, we talked about before, is being backed by Google, does that automatically
That's true.
it
give you any kind of concrete?
It doesn't necessarily mean success, that's for sure.
Yeah. So based on what we know about Flutter right now, do we see this becoming more popular than React Native in the future?
I mean, if they get the desktop component and the web component down, then yes, I would say it would look that way, but we'll have to see.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely like that new kid at school thing going on right now. So everybody's talking about it and everyone's using it. I've got a long-term developer buddy that he said that they're actually switching, and he's been hardcore like native only, and they're switching all of their development over to Flutter this year. That to me, like whenever I see what the community's saying about it and other developers that have been resistant to cross-platform development before, I mean, that speaks volumes. Like I think Google's really onto something. And just our experience with like the animations, all the widgets and everything else, it's very, very intriguing. So much so that Andrew is actually writing an app in
it. Getting there. Yeah. We've started the development.
And I think it's a good discussion for the future too, of saying what is the difference between a write once, use it everywhere versus having features you don't necessarily need in parity across all platforms, and so, but having it all in one, not like code base and in one language, with the same syntax, like React versus React Native, is very compelling. It's really cool. So I think that's about all we have for right now. We need some time to dig into the platform further and learn some more, which we're excited to do in 2019, and also hoping to hear from any of you who are using Flutter or digging into it, getting your feet wet and digging in deeper, and seeing if you can use it in more and more exciting ways.
So stay tuned for more from Crema in development, design. Hit the like button, subscribe, keep up to date with what's going on. We will talk to you later.
See ya.
Bye.
Bye.